Hello, this tutorial is on my Sorrel Clutch pattern. The main feature of this clutch is the turn lock here. This is a zipper lock, so that when you zip it closed, you can lock the zipper and it makes it just a little bit more secure. The Sorrel Clutch can be used as a clutch. It also has these D-rings back here. You can put a chain strap on to make it over the shoulder or cross body. This clutch can be made with any type of fabric. I have, as my example here, and what I'm going to be doing in the tutorial, some cork fabric. I also have this one here that I've made with just a light canvas. Depending on your fabric choice is how much interfacing or what type of interfacing you want to use. For a cork or non-woven type fabric, at least for the exterior, you probably won't need to use any interfacing. If you're using a fabric, you'll want to use a non-woven type of interfacing like Decauville Light, which is what I used on this one to just give it a little bit of support. While the clutch and everything can be made with just about any fabric that you would like, you will need to use a non-fray, non-woven fabric for your zipper lock tab here. So this is the only portion that you'll need to have some sort of non-fray fabric for. So pick out your fabrics and let's get started. So let's look at our pieces for the Sorrel Clutch. I am using a cork fabric today, so a non-woven fabric for my exterior. So I am not going to be using any extra interfacing on my exterior pieces. If you're using a woven fabric, you'll probably want some interfacing depending on the thickness of your fabric. So just do what's best for your fabric if you're using a woven. For my interior, I like to use two different interior fabrics. You can use one. I just like the contrast of two. So these are my pockets. That's going to be my zipper pocket. And this is going to be my card pocket. And these are my side panels. So I'll be using two different colors on those. You'll also need your zippers and your zipper tab. And then your hardware, you're going to need some D-rings, your turn lock, and of course your zipper pulls and a chain. So let's get started. We're going to be starting with our handle and exterior body. So you'll need both your exterior body pieces, your handle. You also want to have your D-rings ready and some double-sided tape. I also like to have a few sewing clips just on hand because you never know when you're going to need something to be clipped in place. So we're going to start with the handle first. So go ahead and move these just off to the side. Get your handle out. There are two methods for making the handle. I am using a non-woven fabric. I'm still using my cork fabric for this. If you are using woven fabric, you're going to follow basically the same steps. You're just going to do a couple extra folds. So I'll kind of talk about that just real quick for a woven. For the woven, you're going to do the same thing. We're going to draw a line down the middle. But for the woven, you'll fold your short edges in, then you're going to fold both of your long edges into the middle. Go ahead and press all that flat, and then you're going to do a second fold. So you'll fold, fold, and then fold again to make your handle. Remember to make sure of which dimensions you're using because it's different dimensions for a non-woven fabric than it is for a woven fabric. So you make sure you have the correct dimensions for the fabric you're using. So I'm going to go through how to do it for a non-woven fabric. So like I said, you're just going to draw a line down the center, and then we're going to fold our long edges to that center line. And like I said, you'll need some clips for this, or you can put a length of double-sided tape and stick your fabric to that. I like to use clips. The double-sided tape that I like isn't like super, super strong, but I like it because it doesn't gum up my needle. But when I'm doing something like this, it doesn't always hold the fabric in place the best. So I still use my clips to do this. It's up to you which method you prefer best. But either way, you're going to fold both of your long edges into the center. Okay. Once you have that, we're going to go over to our sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch these edges down, and we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from our folded edge. All right, so I misspoke. We're going to be doing 2 sets of stitching lines. We're going to be sewing a 1/4 of an inch away from our folded edge, and then we're going to be doing a second stitching line 1/8 of an inch away. So go ahead and do the 1/4 of an inch first. So start at one side. We're going to top stitch a 1/4 of an inch away from this folded edge. Then we're just going to flip and do the same thing down the second side. Okay, we're going to do the same thing down this second side, and so a 1/4 of an inch away from our folded edge. All right, we're going to turn it again, and we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from our folded edge to add a second line of stitching. Okay. Go ahead and trim all your threads, and we'll head back over to the other side. At this point, whether you're using a woven or non-woven fabric, the steps are going to be the same. You're going to have your 2 lines of stitching, and now we're going to add our D-rings. If you're using a non-woven, go ahead and turn it over to the wrong side, which is the side that has your seam. If you're using a woven fabric, just pick a side. We're going to take our double-sided tape and cut a few small pieces here, place them at the end. That's a little longer than I need, but that's okay. We're going to place them at both ends on this wrong side. And then we're going to add our D-rings to these edges. So go ahead and place a D-ring on, and then we're going to fold it over 1 inch. So grab a ruler, double check that. I like to add a small clip just to help hold it in place. Turn it over. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on this other side. Add your D-ring. Don't take off the whole piece of double-sided tape. Let's try that again. There we go. Fold over about 1 inch. Press it in place. Use a clip if you want. Now go ahead and turn your handle to the right side here, and we're going to put it on one of our exterior pieces. This will be the back of your clutch, so if you have a front or a back, go ahead and pick the back piece of your clutch. We are going to attach our handle to the back of the clutch. Again, I'm going to get a couple pieces of double-sided tape. Mine's being wonky. We're going to add those to the wrong side here. To help hold this in place. I want you to take your handle and we're going to center it on the back of our clutch. We're going to put it on, we're going to go down an inch. If you notice, you'll have a little curve at the top of your exterior piece. So we're going to be measuring from these outer corners. So the easiest thing to do is actually just to put a ruler here and line up the inch mark at both corners. The middle of the clutch is probably going to be about 1.25 inches, okay? So, but I want it to be 1 inch from each of your corners. So go ahead and take that extra backing off your double-sided tape. And we're going to line up this in the center. You're going to be about 1.5 inches to 1 inch and like 5/8, depending on how your fold is, from your side edges. And then I just want you to press your edges down. So I'm going to take my clips off here. Make sure you keep your ruler nice and lined up and give it a good press to get your handle in place. What we're going to do now is we're going to go over to our sewing machine and we're going to sew a box here. So you want to sew as close to the D-ring as you can, and then about 1/2 inch down, back up, 1/2 inch back over. I like to follow my outside stitch lines for my box. See if I can zoom in just a little bit on that for you. So I like to follow these outer lines here for my box and just restitch over those to help kind of keep it a little neater. So let's head to the sewing machine. I like to switch my foot to a zipper foot for this step. Helps me get a little bit closer to the D-ring, and since I'm going to be following my other stitch lines, I don't feel like I need some of the measurements that I can see on my other feet. So we're going to start here, close to the D-ring as possible, sew across. I like to start at that outer line, outer stitch line, and sew to the next outer stitch line. Sew down about 1/2 inch across and back up, and we're going to be doing that on both sides. We have our first box sewn. You'll want to double check that this side has not moved. So it's probably going to be off camera here for you, but I'm going to use my ruler and just check real quick that I don't need to adjust anything. Looks like I'm good. So we're going to get this one sewn the same way we did the first side. All right, our handle is attached. Trim up your threads and we'll get started on the next step. Our handle is secured. This next step is optional. I'm going to do it for you today, and I do happen to like the way it looks. Is you can add rivets here inside these boxes that you sewed. Let me zoom in a little here. So inside this sewn box, you can add a rivet. It'll give a little extra support to the handle, and it'll just add a little bit of detail as well. So you can measure, you can eyeball, but you're going to place a rivet right in the center of your box and right in the center of these inside stitch lines. So I just usually kind of eyeball it. And we will use a hole punch to punch those holes. I'm going to zoom back out so it's not. Okay. Then you can just use a small rivet through those holes. And if you want to put a little extra support, you can use a couple scrap pieces of firm interfacing behind these, and then take it over to your press or your hammer and set those rivets. I'm going to do that here in a minute after I tell you the next step. The next step is going to finish up our exterior, and we're going to sew our darts. So all we're going to do is we're going to turn it over to this wrong side. We're going to fold our darts so that the right sides are together, and just add a clip. Same thing on this other side. You're going to fold the dart, right sides together, add your clip. I'm going to go ahead and do my other exterior at the same time. So right sides together, fold your edges so they match, add those clips. Then we are going to go to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, okay? And we're going to just sew all the way down and back stitch so that it's secure. Let's get our darts sewn. You're going to start at the bottom edge of your exterior and sew up until you get off above the dart. So I like to sew just off this edge where it's folded. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, that is our first exterior. There are darts. We're going to do the same thing on the second exterior side. Okay, that is our second side. We are done with our handle and exterior. We'll be moving on to our next section. Our next section is the card pocket assembly. We're going to be making our card pocket. Is going to be a divided card pocket. You're going to have a nice diagram in your pattern. So I suggest looking at that to help you see what I'm talking about. You're going to have your starting edge over here on the left side. Oh, for this section, you're going to need your card pocket and then 2 of your side panels. Go ahead and set the side panels to the side, and we'll just look at the card pocket piece for the moment. On this left-hand side, you're going to have your starting edge, and then you're going to go down from there. From this edge, you're going to make your first measurement, which is 3.5, and you're going to put a mark on each side here, which I have already done. From there, from this mark, you're going to make your next measurement, which is 1 3/4, and make a mark on each edge. You're going to keep going using the diagram in your pattern and marking the distance it tells you to from your last mark. Okay, so not from your edge, from your last mark. And you should have a total of 6 measurements here. Once you have those, remember where your starting edge is. It will have a shorter distance from the edge to the mark than your last mark is. That will be a longer distance. From there, we're going to be folding and ironing. Before we do that, depending on the type of pin you have, I'm using one that disappears with heat, so that's not going to work very well when I'm ironing. I'll end up making my marks disappear. But even if you're not using that type of pin, I like to go through and just put little snips at each of my marks that I've made. Let me zoom in just a little for you. And when you're folding, this will help you to kind of see a little bit better where your marks are, because you'll just have this small little snip in your fabric like this. So when you're folding things over, you'll see that maybe a little bit easier than your pen that you marked with. Don't cut very far in, just, you know, a very small clip. You don't want to, definitely don't get close to your interfacing on the back. So I did that on both sides. And we'll just finish doing little snips right here at these marks. Okay. All right, now we're going to go on to our our folding. Actually, I'm going to pause for just a second and get my iron over here so that we can just do it all in this area right here. Okay, so I got my wool mat here. We're going to just use that and my iron. We're going to go back to our starting edge. This first starting edge, we are going to fold it so our right sides are together. So I want you to fold it down, fold it right there at that mark. This is another reason, like I said, it's a little easier, especially when you're folding right sides together. You can see this clip mark a little bit easier than you can maybe your ink. So go ahead and fold it down. Give it a little finger press here. Remember, right sides together. And then you're just going to press that edge. Okay. Flip your piece over. Now you're going to be folding the wrong sides together. So go ahead and fold down till you get to this second mark you made. Make sure you have a nice straight Go ahead and give that fold a press. Okay, we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to just be alternating our folds, folding right side together, wrong side together, so that when we're done, we will have a total of 3 pockets. Your last fold is going to be a wrong sides together, and it's going to be the top of that 3rd pocket. So once I get that last fold, I like to just give the whole thing just kind of a nice press so that it all stays in place. All right, so here's our 1, 2, 3 pockets. We're going to go over to the sewing machine, and we're going to just top stitch across the top of these pockets. It gives them a little extra stability and a little bit of detail. We're going to top stitch across just the top of our pockets from one side to the other. So you want to make sure that you fold your fabric out of the way and just eye stitch just 1/8 of an inch away from my folded edge. Once you have your first one done, you're going to fold it back out of the way. And do the second one. And then we'll fold the second one out of the way and do the third one. All right, there are our 3 pockets. Go ahead and trim all your threads, and we're going to put our center divider next. Now that you have the top of your pockets top stitched, we're going to put our division, our pocket divider. So we're going to have a total of 6 pockets. I want you to look at your pocket, make sure everything's nice and square, that you don't have some, weird diagonal in there. I want you to go ahead and put clips to hold your pockets in place. Just do it on one side for now. Doesn't matter which one, whichever is easiest for you. Just go ahead and put clips on one side to kind of hold everything in alignment. And then I want you to take your card pocket and flip it over to the wrong side. We're going to measure over to put a line down the center of our card pocket. It's going to be 4 inches from one side, one edge. We're going to start kind of right at the top where your top pocket edge is. You can just kind of feel with your finger where that might be. And then I go maybe like 1/4 of an inch below this last bottom pocket fold. So I usually just start there so I know where I'm ending. Make sure everything's lined up still. And then I just go up to where my top pocket starts. So you can kind of feel with your finger, put a mark there at the top where your top pocket is. We're going to start here and we're going to come down just below our last pocket fold. You can go ahead and clip this other side now to make sure your pockets stay in place as you're sewing. We're going to go to the sewing machine, Start here with the top pocket ends. I like to do just a quick back stitch here. Since it is going to be cards going in and out, I want to make sure that's a secure stitch. And then we're going to end right here, just about 1/4 of an inch below our bottom pocket. Okay, we're just going to follow the line that we drew, making sure to do a small back stitch here at the top to help with securing that top pocket. There is our pocket division. We'll move on to the next step and put the side panels on. We're actually going to do one more thing while we're sitting here at the sewing machine. We're going to baste our edges down to help with our next step. So I like to start from the bottom of my card pocket, and we're just going to do a quick basting stitch up the edge, about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And then on the other side, I flip it to the back so that I can still push the pockets toward the top. Okay, now let's go get those side panels put on. We're going to add our side panels to our card pocket now. So you're going to take your side panel. If there is a direction, make sure if you have directional fabric, you put it going the direction you would like. We're just going to take our side panel, right sides together, and line it up. If there's a little bit of a difference in the length of your card pocket, that's okay, it's going to be trimmed. Go ahead and get your top of your side panel lined up with the top of your card pocket. Don't worry if there's a little extra overhang down here at the bottom. And then just clip your side in place. And we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Line it up here at the top and against the edge. All right, we're going to go over to the sewing machine. We are going to sew with a 3/8 seam allowance down both sides of our card pocket. Okay, we're going to sew with a 3/8 seam allowance down the side of our card pocket. Make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end. We're going to come over and do the same thing on the other side. Now that your side panels are on, we're going to fold the side panels out on each side. Give them a good press. If you are using fabric that you can iron, take them over to your ironing board. Press those seams down. And then we're going to top stitch our side panel 1/8 of an inch away from our seam. All right, press your sides over. Let's go ahead and top stitch, and we're just going to top stitch just 1/8 of an inch away from our seam. Our card pocket is now completely sewn, so we need to cut it to the right shape. So once you get your template, and you're going to line up, if you only cut 1/2 of your template and you used it to cut on a fold, like I have here, you're going to want to line the folded edge, or the fold edge, up against that center divide of your card pocket. If you made a full template for both sides, you're just again going to line the center of that template up with the center of your card pocket, which will be that stitched division line there. All right, so place your template so that the top corner lines up, or the top most curve lines up with the top of your card pocket. And we're going to trace around our template. If you have a piece where you only have half of the template, once you get that top part, or that first side, go ahead and flip your template over to get the second. Make sure you can see all your lines. And then we're going to cut our interior to match our template. Once you have your card pocket cut to size, we're going to do the same thing we did on the exterior, and we're going to put our darts in. So go ahead and fold your darts right side together. And go over to the sewing machine, and we're going to do the same thing we did on the exterior, and sew just 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of our dart. We're going to sew our darts the same way as we did for the exterior. We're going to start at that bottom edge, sew up 1/8 of an inch past the end of your dart over the folded edge of your fabric to make sure everything is nice and secure. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Your card pocket side of your interior is complete, so you can just set this off to the side, and we're going to move on to our zipper pocket assembly. For our zipper pocket, you're going to need 2 side panels, a top and bottom zipper panel, and your zipper pocket, and then you're also going to need your 8-inch zipper and pole. So we're going to first start with our top zipper panel and our zipper pocket. If you have directional fabric for your zipper panel, you actually want to turn it so that it is upside down. So this would be the top of your top zipper panel. That makes sense. Yeah. So if you have directional fabric, you want it upside down at this point. We're going to lay our zipper tape along what will be the bottom edge of the top zipper panel. And you want the right side of the top zipper panel against the teeth of your zipper, the right side of your zipper. We're just going to clip that in place. You'll notice I do not have my zipper pull on yet. When doing this method of a zipper pocket, it is much easier to add the pull after the zipper's sewn in because your edges will be open, so you don't have to worry about sewing that shut before getting your zipper pull on. So if you're using zipper tape, leave the pull off for now. That way you don't have to try to sew around it. Also, if you were newer to making zipper pockets, we are going to be making a zipper sandwich. If you feel more comfortable, you can take over to your sewing machine real quick and baste with just like 1/8 of an inch seam allowance this zipper to your top zipper panel before making your zipper sandwich. Whatever you're comfortable with. If not, just continue with me here. We have our zipper on. We're going to take our zipper pocket. If you have a right side, wrong side to your zipper pocket, make sure that your right side is against the right side of your top zipper panel. And we're just going to clip that in place. All right, so we have our zipper panel, zipper, zipper pocket, right sides together. We're going to sew across the top here with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and get the top of our zipper attached. Okay, we're going to sew our zipper in place. We're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Go ahead and back stitch at the beginning and the end. Once you have sewn your zipper on to the top zipper panel, go ahead and fold that top zipper panel up and give it a good press. If you want to take it over to your ironing board and give it a press with some heat, you can, or you can just do a quick finger press here at your sewing machine. We're going to put a top stitch down the top or along the seam of our top zipper panel. Okay, let's get the bottom of our zipper panel attached. Let's attach the bottom of our zipper panel now. Again, if you have a directional fabric, this time is going to be going the right direction. So you want your directional fabric correct if you'd have that. We're going to take our zipper. Make sure you move that zipper pocket out of the way for the moment. We're going to line up our unsewn edge of our zipper with our bottom zipper pocket right side up, placing the zipper against the right side of our fabric, and clip it in place. Again, if you are more comfortable, you can go do a quick basting stitch to get the zipper basted to this bottom zipper panel. If not, you can just go straight to the zipper sandwich. Okay, so now that the zipper is attached to our bottom panel, you're going to take the bottom edge of your zipper pocket and just fold it up so that it meets your zipper edge. And you're going to clip that in place, making sure your edges stay nice and aligned. So our zipper pocket is folded up, and this edge is against the top edge of our zipper panel from the bottom. Let's go over to the sewing machine, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to fold it over and top stitch like we did with the top of the zipper panel. Let's get the rest of our zipper pocket on. We're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, once again, we're going to top stitch. I want you to make sure you take your zipper pocket and you fold it completely out of the way. So make sure it's tucked up high. And then you can finger press this top portion, or I'm sorry, this bottom portion of your zipper panel down. And we're going to top stitch just right along our seam. Okay, we have our zipper pocket top and bottom panels sewn on and top stitched. Go ahead and make sure your zipper pocket is back down flat, and you can give it a good press if your fabric allows. At this point is when you want to add your zipper pull. Real quick, I'm going to go off screen and I'm going to baste down the sides of my zipper panel here before I add on the side panels. But I'm just going to do that real quick off screen, and then we'll come back and put our side panels on. Okay, I've basted down the sides. This is just going to get the zipper pocket so it's flat and in place. And then also, if you're moving your zip around, it won't come off the sides. But let's get our side panels in place now. We're going to do the same thing we did on the card pocket. We're going to line our side panels up with the top edge of our zipper pocket, and you'll notice your zipper pocket is going to be quite a bit longer than your side panels. That's why I want you to line up this top edge. And go ahead and just clip those in place. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Right side together, line up the top, and clip in place. We're going to go over to the sewing machine, and again, we're going to sew a 3/8 seam allowance down both sides of our zipper panels. Okay, we're going to do a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to sew down from top to bottom. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and end. We're going to do both sides. Same thing we did with the card pocket. We're going to fold our zipper or our side panels out, and we're going to top stitch down our side panel 1/8 of an inch away from our seam. Our zipper is in, our side panels are on. Now we need to cut our zipper pocket to shape. So just like we did with the card pocket, we're going to use our template A to cut the shape of our interior. So we need to find the center of our zipper pocket. Not quite as easy because we don't have that dividing line. So what I like to do is I like to fold my piece over and I like to line up my side panels so that they're even. And then I just put a little crease at the top here. And I do the same thing at the bottom. I line up those side panels so they're even. And I just go kind of right below the zipper pocket and just pinch a crease so I know where my middle is. So if you have trouble seeing those creases, you can take a pin and draw that crease in. Be careful when you're marking here because you don't want to mark into your interior. So I tend to put that first one in, line it up, and kind of see where I'm going to end my pocket. I'm sorry, my template. And then I just line up from there to the middle. But I can't really see my crease. So let me put another one in there. Down there. Okay. So once again, make sure you line up the top edge of your template, the topmost of the curve with the center of your zipper pocket. If you have only half the template, line the fold up to the center. If you have a whole template, line the center of the template up with the center of your zipper panel here. And go ahead and trace around the template. If you're using the half template, flip it over, reline it up with the center, and trace around the other side. Double check you can see all your lines, and then go ahead and cut your interior zipper panel out. Once you have your zipper panel cut, we're going to put the darts in, same as before. Fold your right sides together, line up those dart edges, add a clip. And we will head over to the sewing machine and sew our darts. Again, we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of our dart. We're going to start at the bottom and sew up all the way past the edge, the top point of the dart off this folded edge. Make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. Our darts are sewn. The interior zipper panel is finished. You can just set this to the side, and we're going to move on to our exterior zipper assembly section. For this section, you're going to need your zipper lock with the interfacing. You're going to need your zipper tab, and you're going to need your 10.5 inch zipper with a zipper pull. Now remember, this zipper pull needs to have one of these D-ring type pulls as opposed to a standard donut shaped pull, because we're going to put our zipper lock through this section here. Okay, I want you to take your zipper lock, I want you to turn it wrong side up, and we're going to use a little bit of fabric glue to get our interfacing stuck on. My favorite type of fabric glue is this Fabric Tack by Beacon. It dries quickly, it works really well on cork. If you have a different type that you like, feel free to use that. But this is the kind I always use when I'm working with cork leather. So one side of your zipper lock, you're going to glue down your interfacing. Just center it around the edge and in the middle. Give it a good press. Go ahead and slip your other side through the D-ring on your zipper. And then a little more glue, and we'll fold over your zipper lock. Just fold this in half, match up the edges. Give it a good press. Okay, we're going to go over to the sewing machine, and I want you to sew as close as you can to your D-ring here on your zipper. As close as you can to that. I am going to zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. There we go. So you want to get as close as possible to your D-ring, and then we're just going to sew around this outer edge. And we're going to sew with a scant 1/8 of an inch. So you want to get as close to that edge as you can. I've once again changed over to my zipper foot to help me get close to this D-ring on the zipper pull. So I'm going to go across the top, then we're going to just go around the rest of the zipper lock. If you find you just can't get this zipper pull underneath your zipper foot well, or your presser foot well on your sewing machine, go ahead and just sew across the top, pull it out, clip your threads, and start as best you can and as close as you can to your zipper pull. It kind of depends on your sewing machine and on your foot, and just how close you can get to it. Once the zipper lock is top stitched, if you want to edge paint the zipper lock, you'll want to do that now before you move on to the next step. If you don't want to edge paint it, let's just keep going. You're going to get your zipper, and I need you to go ahead and turn down one edge 90 degrees and just base those edges down, and we'll put our zipper lock on. In your pattern, you're going to see that there is going to be a right side and wrong side to your zipper lock. So this is the right side. So when you're pulling your zipper closed, with the D-ring at the top of the zipper pull, this direction is the top of your zipper lock. So this is what's going to be facing the exterior when your zipper is locked. So that is that is described in this section. So I just wanted to point that out to you. When it's down like this, this is actually going to be the back side of the zipper lock when it is closed and locked on your clutch. Okay, but before we get to that part, we need to put our zipper end on. So you're going to take your zipper end piece and fold it in half. Give it a little finger crease there. Open it back up. Fold your edges into the middle on both ends. Again, you can give it a little finger crease if you want it a little bit more crisp. You can take it over to your iron and give it a press. And then we're just going to slide it just on the end of the zipper here. You're going to have overhang, so don't worry about that. That will be taken care of. And then just clip it in place. We're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're just going to sew straight across our zipper end. With 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're just going to sew our zipper tab onto the end of our zipper here. Our zipper tab is on. We can just trim off this extra end here, the overhang on each side. Careful not to cut your zipper. And then we need to mark the center of our zipper. So to do that, I just like to fold my zipper in half, line up that zipper tab with where I have folded down my edges at 90 degrees, and then just mark my center here. Careful not to go too far in. I'm working on the right side. You can also mark on the back side if you want. And now we're going to move on to our next section, which is the body assembly. For the body assembly, you're going to need your front and back exterior pieces, and then both of your interior pieces, your card pocket, your zipper pocket, and of course the zipper that we were just working on. We're going to start with our back exterior piece. That is the piece that has the handle, so you can set the other to the side. And we're going to start with our card pocket interior piece. If you haven't already, go ahead and mark your centers on both pieces. And we're going to start with our exterior piece, right side up. You'll take your zipper and you're going to have the zipper pull to the right hand side. You're going to line up the center of the zipper with the center of your exterior piece and clip that in place. And then just continue to clip the edge of your zipper to the edge of your exterior. Remember, your exterior does, or the top of your body pieces do curve. Not very much, so you're not going to have a drastic bend in your zipper, but just remember it is going to kind of curve across here. Okay, the same thing as when we were making the zipper pocket. If you feel more comfortable, you can take this over to the sewing machine and just do a quick baste to get your zipper in place on your exterior. If not, you can go ahead and do your zipper sandwich. So take your card pocket interior, place it right sides together with the exterior, line up the centers and clip that in place so your zipper is between the two pieces. Once that's in place, we're going to take it over to our sewing machine. We're going to do a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and just sew across the top of our body pieces. We're just going to sew across the top of our body pieces here. Be careful when you get to your zipper pull, move that out of the way. Go ahead and start at the edge all the way to the edge. You'll be sewing your exterior and interior together the whole way across. Now that the top or the interior and the exterior are sewn together, we're just going to flip it open. I want you to flip your exterior to the outside, your interior to the inside, so that the wrong sides are together. And we're just going to press down this seam. If you have fabric that allows, you can take it to the ironing board. Since I'm using cork, I'm going to just use a clip at each end and give it a good finger press to help hold that seam down. Go to this side as well, just to make sure the interior is flat. Now we are going to want to do a top stitch across our seam here, but I don't want you to go all the way across because we want to leave these edges open for when we're sewing everything together. It makes it a little bit nicer. So instead, I want you to start just about a stitch on either side of the zipper. So stop and start just like 1 stitch on either side of the zipper. You don't want to go all the way across. That will cause some problems when we are sewing our sides together. So let's go back over to the sewing machine and we'll top stitch this. We're going to top stitch just 1/8 inch away from our seam. Remember, start about 1 stitch in front of the zipper and end just about 1 stitch after the zipper. Also remember that the top of this clutch is curved just a little bit, so you want to make sure you follow that. It's not so pronounced of a curve that you should have to clip anything, but if you feel the need to get a flat seam here, you can. Let's get the other side put on. I don't think I mentioned it when I was top stitching, but I didn't backspace at the beginning, backstitch at the beginning and end. I left long tails and then I tied it off and pulled my tails through just to the inside of my pieces. That leaves a nice clean edge on your stitching. But let's get our other side put on. So I want you to get the front portion of your exterior and we're going to flip right sides together, line up our middle, our center marks here. It should have the edges lined up here as well, but if not, stick with your center marks and go ahead and clip this in place. Remember that curve at the top, just to make sure your zipper curves along it. Once again, if you feel a little more comfortable, you can go along and baste the zipper. Add 1/8 of an inch baste here to help it. It'll be a little more secure. If not, we're going to make our zipper sandwich. So get your zipper interior, match up those center marks, and just clip it in place, sandwiching your zipper between the two pieces. Okay, let's go over to the sewing machine. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to sew across the top from one end to the other with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Be careful of your zipper pull. Move that out of the way when you need to. Let's sew along our top edge with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. We have the second side of the zipper sewn, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to flip our exterior and our interior, wrong sides together, and just press that seam down. Again, if you have a fabric that can be ironed, you can take it over to your iron and give it a good press. If not, and just give it a good finger press here. I like to do the exterior and also flip it over and make sure the interior is also pressed flat. Now we're going to do the same thing we did on the other side. We're going to do that abbreviated top stitch. So we're going to end right before and right after, or start right before and end right after where our zipper is. So let's go top stitch. So let's start just about a stitch before the zipper. And I forgot to say this on the other side. Go ahead and leave a long tail and don't back stitch, and we'll pull the tails through and tie them off for a neater finish. Okay, we have our exterior zipper put on and the top stitched. Now we're going to do our lock insertion. So we need to figure out where our lock is going to go. I don't have this on the template because it's going to be a little bit different for everyone depending on how you've sewn everything. So that's why we're doing it now instead of trying to put the marks in before we've gotten things sewn together. Everything shifts a little bit, so I like to just do the placement once we know where everything is. So, like I talked about before, I want you to take your zipper and pull it all the way to the end and keep that zipper lock tab pulled out, okay, so that this ring here is at the top of your pull. Now I want you to take your zipper tab, your zipper lock, and just turn it 90 degrees. Go ahead and keep that pull toward the top of your lock. Let me zoom in just a little so you can see where I am. Okay, so we want it at the top of our pole, and we're just going to turn it 90 degrees so it's still laying right there. Okay, so you're going to turn it 90 degrees, get it a little loose. You don't want it too tight, so loosen it just a little, and we're going to lay our zipper right flat on the front exterior of our clutch. Go ahead and take a pin, and this is where we're going to insert the male side of our twist lock, and you're going to just make a circle, mark this oval portion of your lock. Okay, so this is just going to sit right in here like this. So you can also just take the lock and press it down and make the indentions right in there. Okay. Once you have your marks in place, we're going to insert our male lock. So make sure, let me zoom back out here. Make sure you move your interior out of the way, and we're going to place our male lock here in this circle. So go ahead and get your seam ripper, is what I like to use, and right at the top of that oval that you drew, you're just going to put a small slit. Make sure you don't press too hard, because you don't want to go all the way across and ruin your fabric that you've just done so much work on. All right, so we made small slits there. We're going to insert our male end of our twist lock right there, and it should sit nicely in that oval that you've drawn. Okay. Remember, you're only wanting to do the exterior, so make sure your interior is out of the way. I like to take a firm piece of stabilizer, just a little scrap piece, and place it between. And then just fold your edges down. This is a little more difficult because that twist piece portion there we go. And then if you want, you can get another piece of woven interfacing and place it over this if you don't want it to rub against your interior. That's just another way to kind of keep everything nice and smooth there. All right, so that's the insertion of your male lock. Let's move on. Let's move on to our final assembly section now. We are going to sew our pieces together. So I would like you to open up your clutch so that your exterior pieces are right sides together and your interior pieces are right sides together. Start here. Oh, before you do that, open your zipper about halfway. That will help. So start here at your top seam, which is why I didn't have you top stitch all the way across, so we can open up these seams here and get a little bit nicer, less bulky finish to our edge when we get these sewn together. So line up those top seams on both sides. And place a clip. And then I want you to go down. I'm going to place another one here, just kind of hold that where I want it. This twist lock here is going to kind of make things bulky. So just be careful of that as you're doing things. I want you to go down to your bottoms, line up your bottom center marks. And I want you to come over to your darts. Go ahead and nest these. So I want you to push one in one direction and one in the other, okay? And clip that in place. And do that all the way for all 4 darts. That will keep the bulk down just a little bit. So when I say nest the seams, if you're unfamiliar with that term, what I mean is to push one seam to one side and then the opposite seam the opposite direction. And then just push those seams together. You'll feel them kind of click together. That's called nesting the seams, if that's an unfamiliar term for you. If things are really nice, your side panels should also meet. Mine almost do. Mine was almost really nice. All right, so once you have those key points clipped, go ahead and just clip the rest of the way around your interior and exterior. Okay, we are going to sew around our clutch, but we want to leave an opening at the bottom for turning. I like to leave the opening on the inside. So what I want you to do is I want you to make about a 5 to 6 inch mark here. And you're not going to sew between. So you're going to start here. So all the way around, across your exterior, and then end at your next mark to keep these open. Let's head to the sewing machine. All right, we're going to sew around our clutch, leaving an opening at the bottom of the interior for turning. We're going to use a 3/8 seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. All right, aside from the bobbin mishap, we are going to now trim our sides. You can take pinking shears or clip around the corners here, and then we'll pull everything through this opening we left. We're going to trim our seam allowance now, except for this center here where we've left open for the turning. Go ahead and leave that untrimmed. It'll be easier to sew everything together with that a little longer. You don't want to trim too much. You don't want to just probably leave your seam allowance at least 1/4 of an inch. So if you just want to trim a little bit, or if you just want to trim your corners here with some pinking shears, or just put some little snips in that corner, that's perfectly fine too. It just depends on how comfortable you are with your seam allowance being a little smaller. So I am just going to take my pinking shears around these corners, and then I'll probably trim kind of here just a little bit to get it not so bulky for when I flip it. All right, now we are ready to flip. So let me move my scissors out of the way so I don't knock those off onto my foot. So just reach in. You can find your zipper and open that up the rest of the way to make it a little bit easier to turn. And just grab that bottom and pull it through your opening. All right, so this actually did what I was going to tell you, if it happens. So you'll see my handle is actually on the wrong side. So just pull that around so it's on the right side. Pop your corners out. If you have a turning tool that you like to use to kind of help you get your seam open all the way, I tend to just, once I get it mostly, I just kind of go through and kind of wiggle the seam there. Yeah. All right, so we're going to sew this bottom edge. You can either sew it with machine or you can sew it with by hand, however you like to do that. I like to sew mine by hand, so for the moment we're going to just move on from that step. I'm just going to put a couple, well, not that one because I threw it across the room. I'm going to put a couple clips here just along the bottom, and we'll move on to getting the rest of our turn lock on. So tuck your interior in, give everything kind of a nice smooth, and then I want you to look at your zipper lock here. All right, so remember, when the zipper is pulled shut, this is going to be the top of your turn lock. Okay, so when we're putting this next piece on, there is a top and a bottom. We want the top portion, the pretty side, to go up when our zipper is pulled to the top of our zipper pull. Okay, so go ahead and open that up. We're going to insert the female portion of our turn lock. Don't lose your screws. There we go. All right, so here's my top. I'm going to slide it right there into my opening. You might need to do a little more clipping. I'm going to need to do a little more clipping. Let me grab my little clippers here. Need just a little more room here. Normally I would do this zipper lock here with my laser, but the type of laser that I have doesn't really like blue color because it's a diode laser. I won't go into all that at the moment, but I had to cut this one by hand. So sometimes if you're cutting by hand, you have to kind of trim that up just a little bit. So let's look at this again. We're going to place our top portion of our turn lock into the hole. There we go. Now I have enough room for my screws. Place your bottom piece in place. And we're going to get our screws set. A little bit of Loctite can be used on these screws if you're worried about them moving or coming loose. Just be careful to just use just a small amount so you don't overrun. Okay, there we go. Okay, now you should be able to slide your zipper and lock it in place. Oop, that's what's not happening. Let's try that again. All right, it's not catching. Pause for just a moment. Okay, sorry, my screw was not wanting to thread through, so I had to give it a little extra effort. Now, once that is in, you should be able to slide it over your lock and lock it in place. There we go. And your Sorrel clutch is finished. Make sure if you haven't already that you stitch up that inside interior that we left open and enjoy your clutch. One last thing I forgot to mention is that this has an optional chain. That's why we have these D-rings back here. So for your chain strap, all you need to do is clip it on here and here, and you have an optional way to carry your clutch, or you can just carry it as a traditional clutch. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed making this one.